So we're back and we're excited.
Yeah.
We haven't done our Saturday morning dates live in a long time. Now we've been doing our morning dates, but life got in the way. On the last one we did on Sunday last week, we talked about why we were kind of in a hiatus, right? It was life, it was kids, it was holidays. It was almost the feeling of having to be there or having to be on versus doing it because you wanted to, like holistically. And so we're back. And we're actually in one of the most like stressful times of our entire life, but we're back.
It's voluntary stress.
Oh yeah, it's voluntary stress.
Yeah.
So we're back to talk about, we had some great topics, and we're always here to answer your questions about just life and work and being an entrepreneur, working with your spouse, your wife, your husband, your kids. Those are the questions we love to answer and just talk through our experience.
Yeah.
And do we want to talk about, what do we want to talk about today?
So there's a few things. I think one, by the way, we had a great dinner last night with the oldest son.
With our oldest son, who's visiting Florida.
Yeah, and his friend, honestly, we call them family anyways. They're just a good family friend. Known them for a while, but so it's kind of like a triple date.
Yeah.
With the kids.
With the kids. I mean, he calls me mom. He's 25, because he's best friends with my son, who's 27.
But
we had a really good lunch date with a peer.
The day before
that with Renee. And it was great to talk about life, working with your spouse. How do you bring your spouse into business?
Yeah.
And me and Chris have went through, and we shared our stories of going through horrible times in business together, where I had to fire him. How many times?
6
times, to finally helping him find the space that he just loves to be in.
Yeah.
So it's been a great week. I have to admit, a lot of growing, a lot of connecting. We don't typically go out for dinner or lunch, but this week was full of meeting friends and family and peers and just talking about life, how it integrates with business.
Yeah. Cause we've been so deep in work, it's execution mode, that I'm so glad that Renee kind of, pulled us out of that cycle for a minute and said, "Hey, are you available to have lunch?" And Libby said, "Absolutely." So going there, connecting, talking just about randomness, but it always falls back to business anyways, because if you're an entrepreneur, that's just what you settle in on.
Yeah.
But I think we had a lot of time to share, kind of like what we're sharing now, is a lot of personal stuff and a lot of business stuff. And I think it was really refreshing because we shared a lot of things that we went through personally. A lot of talking about past trauma, talking about self-sabotage and other things that, limiting beliefs.
And even having to bring a mediator into our marriage to help us.
Yeah. So we had a lot of deep discussions that just, it's the randomness that happens when you talk to somebody. And it was really refreshing. A lot of topics came out of that. And then again, last night with our oh my gosh, is he 27?
27.
Wow.
He'll be 28 in February.
Yeah.
April.
27-year-old. And then again, Austin, who's 17, and then Yaya, who's 7. And then our, our extended family of his friend and his girlfriend. But great conversations happened. They asked for some thoughts, some advice. One sec.
Sorry, my hair was caught between my legs. That's how long it is. I couldn't get it out.
So topics came about. One is how to deal with working with a spouse. We also talked about how do you know, because it was amazing questions, how do you know when there's something there to just take and run with? It was about how you grew the 4 or 5 businesses.
Yeah, from cleaning.
When did you know it was the right time to just run with it?
And his kids are 25 and 27, and I think we underestimate young kids. I don't know what they're called. Gen Zs? No.
I don't
know. I don't keep up with the labels, but they are extremely smart and passionate, and they just want more, but they don't know how to find it. They don't know how to get it.
Yeah. And then we had talks about catching the winds of luck and a lot of our past. So we wanted to share with you today, I think, if we can, as many topics as possible. But there was just a common theme of just being in the right mind, being in the right place.
At the right table.
Yeah. I think that's actually, going back to it, is one layer deep. It's the right information to the right person at the right time in the right way, is the whole concept of one layer deep. And everything we talked about really circled back to that in some way, either personal or business.
Yeah. And so, we've been in the middle of a launch and we're not even done launching the whole thing. Like when Leia comes out 100%, like it's just going to be amazing how it changes like the small business. Because it's all about systems, processes, like in your team as well, right? It has to function not just for me, the owner, but your team. But, going back to everything we covered today, the actual operation of business is not necessarily what most people struggle with. It is the self-sabotage, the self-talk, the self-belief, the emotional state that you're in, the emotional manipulation that you're currently in, which is weird. And like when we were at lunch, I almost made somebody cry, and I didn't mean to, but it was like that emotional manipulation that you're currently in, or emotional like state. And it's a trigger to your past. And, you wonder why we're anchored to certain things, or why we resonate with certain things. And it's been interesting, but like there's so much stuff to talk about that we experienced this week, from, like I said, dinner with our adult child and his friends.
Yeah.
And these are kids that want to learn. They want to like know something different, and they're good kids. They show up and they go to work and they pay rent, and they just don't know any better.
Yeah.
To talking with a friend and saying, I want to bring my husband into our business. How do you bring your husband into a business? And if you have questions on that, like how do you bring family into business? Me and Chris, my ex, we worked together and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. I told the story about how Chris got brought into Wootwork, how he got fired from organizing.
So yeah, and I wanted to bring that up real quick because you talked about it. And it might just be a great idea to say, I'm going to bring my spouse in. It's going to be amazing because we can now work together on the same business. But I discovered 6 different ways to fail in bringing a spouse in.
And I love you for that, but he stayed.
But I want to bring that note up, is that I found 6 different ways to fail in business, but through the trial and error. And again, I think because we were fully transparent and working through that also, we were finally able to hit number 7. If we would have stopped at number 6, again, the same concept goes with sales. I think it's, you got to keep going because it's the 7th touch point that really matters. Most people give up on number 6 or even number 3. But if we would have given up on trying to do the things the right way, to bring the spouse into the business, I would have stopped at 6, and it just would have been hell.
Yeah. But that being said though, and this is the one thing I tell everybody, you have to have the nerve or the confidence to tell your husband or your wife, they're like, hey, I love you, but you suck at sales. Or like, I'm sorry, but like, I got to fire you from customer success. Like, hey, like you're not very good at cleaning. You're inefficient. Like, and so if you can't do that to your spouse, your husband, your mom, your dad, whoever it is you're bringing into your business as family, then you can't bring them in.
And if your spouse isn't ready to receive it, same thing goes.
Yeah. And so I think it's, we were talking to our friends about it because they want to bring in their spouse to their business, and how do we get them there? How do you learn to work together? And I said, it wasn't always sunshines and rainbows. Chris, we had to bring in a mediator for me and Chris.
And we had to mediate twice. We're talking about our marriage, our relationship.
That was before he even worked in the company. Yeah. And we had to bring a mediator in, and I would love your guys' questions if you have any. And I know this is a vulnerable state to say, like, because your husband might see it or your wife might see it.
So let me reframe this real quick. And let's just say that not necessarily if you're in that spot right now, but let's just say if you want to comment or whatever on.
Maybe it's not what you're in right now, but maybe it's the future. So you can, because one of the biggest frustrations I ever had in business was I have freedom, time freedom, like schedule freedom, but he didn't. So it didn't matter if I had it, but he didn't have it, because I don't want to go on vacation by myself.
And I was stuck in the day-to-day with the way I was approaching work.
Yeah. And so if it doesn't line up, it doesn't matter. So maybe that's your end goal one day. And so questions are great to bring up. Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. And so I want to invite you that if you are or are thinking of bringing in a partner, be open to asking, or at least like engage with us and let us know and say, hey, we're actually working together. Here's what's working for us. Or say, hey, I'm curious to know what's working for you. Let's start there. I think that way it's not like this friction point. It's the girlfriend of the friend last night said, it's all about curiosity.
Yeah, she
Be
said,
curious.
It's all about curiosity. The one thing I can say that makes it different. So Chris has never worked with another spouse and it gone wrong. Well, I mean, he got fired 6 times, so you could say that it went wrong, but it's the same spouse. I worked prior with my other spouse and or partner, and it was horrible because they would leave things at work and I would hold the grudge. I would bring it to the dinner table. I would keep that emotional state in the home. And I think for me, you know, the biggest change, because someone said, like, what's the biggest difference? And I said, I did the self work. I'm a different person. I know now that in the past, I was kind of feeding into the friction. And this is people talk down about compromise. I wasn't willing to compromise for our relationship. I was hard-headed. And compromise is a great thing in a relationship because it's a give and take. It can't just be a take and a give. There's a mutual understanding, right? That we're agreeing to in compromising to say like, hey, sure, like, I don't really want steak for dinner, but I'll eat it.
Yeah, no, and just real quick, because you said you had to do the self-work, and I want to make the clarification, the statement here, that I also had to do the self-work of being willing to understand that I'm not perfect either. And so I think it worked well because we both were at that point to where we were both open to hearing about it. Not necessarily that I was doing the self-work right then and there, but I started to listen. I think that was important for me because as a man, it's really hard for me to like open up emotionally.
I was looking at what I have on the roll. I was like, I hope it's nothing bad.
But it was hard for me to open up emotionally.
Eyebrows. No, I'm joking.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so then they say, how do you do the self-work? Because you can have the best partner in the world, but if you're closed-minded or you're hard-headed or you're stuck in your ways, you're not going to see that you have the best partner or opportunity in the world. You just see what you see. You live in the box, right?
Yeah.
And so they had asked, how did we get to that point? How did we get there? And I drew at the lunch table, I drew a diagram and I'm like, you know, that we have this goal. And typically we get to a certain point fast. And then we hit these like speed bumps, right? And this comes from, you know, what I learned in SAS Academy. And it's, you know, the speed bumps are your past trauma, your past experience, your past issues. And they always slow you down until you're facing them, confronting them, talking about them. And, you know, for me, it was for us, our journeys were very particular about how could we work well together? Because here's the thing, Chris is super smart, right? He's super smart. And I was trying to dump things on him that he didn't need. And the same thing with me, he was trying to tell me things or show me things that I didn't need. But we didn't really understand how we worked or our triggers, right? Our triggers. And we all have triggers. And this helps you in your marriage, whether you're working together or not. But what are your triggers? And those are typically things that come from your past.
Yeah.
So what's a phrase I would say to you and that like just you totally shut down?
4 words. What are you doing?
What are you doing? So how do you work with your spouse and not ask, say like, hey, what are you doing right now? Like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, cause I don't know what he's doing. Like maybe he needs another to do. Maybe there's like, he needs help.
The trigger is that like, she would say, what are you doing? And my body's reaction was instantly like, it was like fight or flight. I would start to sweat. I would start to get flush and red. I would start to almost hyperventilate in a way. I would start to breathe a little bit heavy and get flustered. When she said, what are you doing? Immediately this like huge defensive wall popped in. And every time you would ask me that question, it would take me, I'll be straight up with you, at least an hour to reset.
And all I did, guys, was ask a question. Like as a business owner, you ask the other employees. And the one thing I have to say with Chris is when you bring your spouse into a business, so there's like the self-work and the growth and the emotional state, but there's also the, like, you have to pay your spouse a fair wage and you have to pay them what the position pays, no more and no less. It doesn't matter if they need it because they have to support the household. It doesn't matter if you don't have enough money to pay them and you're paying them less. You have to pay them a fair wage. Now, Chris has always been paid a great wage. Now he puts in more hours because, you know, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But we respect that time and that effort. But he's always been paid a fair wage. And he's always been an employee of the business. I don't try to make him an entrepreneur. That's different. And we can get into that in a minute.
We had a lot of long discussions about the idea of, one of my visions, one of my goals was to own my own company, to be an entrepreneur, or to do X thing. And I had to do a lot of self-work to figure out that I actually didn't need that. And it was just more of this ego-driven thing to think I had to.
Well, he wanted to be, so let's go back to your triggers.
Yeah.
Let's not forget this. You know, the wage and the schedule and you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and, you know, I tried to make you one. We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But your triggers, and it completely affected his work, his performance, our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
By me just asking, like, hey, what are you going to do today? What are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? And he tried to, I could see it, you know, and he tried, and I said, I remember this one day vividly on our morning date. I told him, I said, you know, I don't know what's wrong with you, and I don't know what you went through in your past, but you're more effed up in your head than I am. And you had said to me, well, my past or trauma isn't as bad as yours.
I didn't say it in like a condescending way.
No.
But genuinely, I thought that just because my trauma was different, it didn't sum up to what she had to deal with.
Trauma comparing. What did they say? I said it at lunch the other day. And I was like, Chris, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It matters how it affects you. It doesn't matter how bad it is. You can't compare it to someone else's. You know, mine and my past at one time was physical and emotional. It was abusive. And he's like, well, mine wasn't as bad as yours. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It matters how it affects you. It doesn't matter. You can't compare one person's trauma to another and say, well, mine wasn't as bad as yours. I'm fine. And I was like, you're not fine. I don't know what story you're telling yourself.
Right.
But yeah, there's something in there that you need to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we can talk about another time in terms of like the exercises and everything that we had to go through, and really working through it ourselves, having to deal with it ourselves and actually like confront things. Yeah.
I have to give it to Dan Martell. I was in Boardroom. So Boardroom doesn't exist anymore. They dissolved it. It was like life changing. And I remember this was about 4 years ago. I was in Boston. I remember this. I remember it vividly, and I don't have a vivid imagination.
Right.
I was in Boardroom, and Dan had hired a Reiki breathing person, I don't even know how you explain it, to come in and do a guided exercise with us at 6 a.m. And like nobody came. It was like me, Alex Duda, Dan Martell, and like 2 other people. And there was 40 people in the group. And it was just like 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 of us that showed up. And for me, it was life changing to go through that exercise. And for me, that was the moment that I knew I needed to address my past and stop hiding it, right? Stop suppressing it, stop hiding it. I was always limiting myself as a leader, as a mom, as a wife, as just a person. If I was just pushing this thing that I was so shameful about down. And, you know, when we got done with the exercise, I was like, I have cried in a room with Dan Martell because he was crying as well. By the time you get done, I mean, it's so transformational that it just changes your life. And so I went through that without Chris.
Yeah.
But then I told Chris, I'm like, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to like, try it, experiment with it. And for me, and like you said, we can talk about the exercises later. For me, I knew that if I wanted to grow as a woman and as a business owner and just as a person, I needed to tell my story. We all have a story, and it needs to be heard and it needs to be told. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you don't have something to show or teach someone. We all have a story, and it needs to be shared and it needs to be told. And that's why a lot of people didn't hear about my past until I started talking about it. But before I started talking about it, for me, my exercise was going to our 2 kids and asking them permission, well, Billy and Austin, to share past about their dad, and to go to his mom and share past, that I wanted to talk about my past, because it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And it wasn't glorifying, but it was about addiction and, it's not easy. And I don't know if I have any people out there that have been with in an emotionally abusive and physically abusive relationship. It lives with you forever.
Yeah.
Forever. It's something I work through every single day. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
No, you learn how to work through it every single day. And to be honest, it makes business and the challenges of business a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Like a piece of cake. It was a stressful week. And I was like, I referenced back to like the things I've been through in my life. And I'm like, holy crap, this is a piece of cake.
Yeah. When you zoom out and actually look at it, because in the moment it might feel intense, but
yeah,
zoom out a bit.
It felt intense. And then I was doing a walk and I was like, man, this is nothing. This is a piece of cake compared to the things we've been through. Yeah. And so we can work through those exercises if you guys are ever interested. So we have a couples quarterly exercise that we do. We have a self-sabotaging exercise. It's just questions you ask yourself. It's like a framework that we work through. And man, did those change our life for us as a couple to work through those. And what was your thought the first time I asked you to do a couples quarterly meeting?
I was like, okay, but it didn't make 100% sense when you first asked it. But I was like, I'll play along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just plays along. That's good. Yeah.
That's one of my new things. A couple of years ago, I picked it up, which was always say yes, because I used to always say no, and I lost out on some major opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'm in the season of, I'm in the season of yes.
I'm in the season of no.
Right. But it's because I have a few things that I kind of override my limiting beliefs, and that's one of them to help that in certain situations.
Yeah. I'm in a season of no because one of my self-sabotaging was saying yes to everything. So I'm in a season of no. And so we said we were going to talk about the exercises later, but we wanted to talk about, I forgot what you had said.
So it's the future frame, understanding what, how to like really grab hold of something when.
Keep talking.
Yeah. Grab a hold of something when, because it was, with our kids, it was figuring out like, where did you decide, or where did you figure out how to, when to start the business or when to start growing something? And we explained to because it was the girlfriend of a friend, that I actually don't think it was when we decided to, or when Libby decided to. It was all about, catching the winds of luck. It was actually like when the moment happened, like it kind of like you latched onto it. And
I got my book because you're talking about future frame. And
yeah,
book.
But it was like latching on to something and just like going in. If it's right, it's right. And so you don't try to force something that's not right.
Yeah. And that's true with like even working with your spouse. So if we want to, because let's just keep the topic on spouses today. The future frame is all about finding your fire. And I'm trying to get to the part in the book, right? It's knowing your friction, right? What do you hate to do?
So
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was like, it's the friction. It's seeing what drags you down, like what makes you tired, what exhausts you. And then it's finding the focus, knowing where you create value. Where would your spouse create value? But also what drags them down. Gets exhausted when it's customer focused and all. If you're one of our customers, right, and or any other thing that we're doing, you would think, but he's so nice. It takes so much out of Chris. It takes so much out of him to communicate with customers.
Because
yeah.
Because the focus is something that it's something you're good at, but it might not necessarily be where you end up at. Like it's good at, like right now you have a great purpose and you're able to do something very well, but it might not be the forever home for what you want to do.
Yeah. And I've always told Chris, if you can sit in this seat for 3 months and we can increase the revenue, then I can move you to the next seat. It's never a forever thing. And you have to sit, and this goes for the spouse. They have to sit in seats they don't like. They can't just come in and do what they want or do what they're good at necessarily. It's what the company needs right now. It's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the friction, right? It's the future frame. It's chapter 10 and One Layer Deep. It's the friction. It's seeing what drags a person down, what drags you down, what drags them down. It's the focus, knowing what creates value right now. What are you doing right now? Or what could they do right now that would create value right now?
Yeah.
Because the company, you have to bring a person in and they have to create value right now, because we can't just pay someone.
Or wait for the right time.
Yeah. Or you can't wait for the right time either. And then the fire, right? The conviction that gets you out of bed. What's your spouse's fire? What do they want to do? What are they great at? Just knowing that, so that you can then tee that up to say, hey, Chris, if you could just do this for me for 3 months, then I'll move you over to your fire.
Yeah.
Versus saying, I'm going to come in and put you at your fire, even though I can't afford it. It's not built out yet and it's not ready yet.
It doesn't actually exist right now.
I have sit here and watched Chris help me. He's an intrapreneur. He's an inside builder. And so for spouses, this is really true. Most likely you're not both entrepreneurs. You're not, because if you were, you'd probably be fighting constantly, unless you're fighting constantly. Well, and I say, and there's exceptions to the rules, right? If you have enough self-understanding and you've done enough self-work. But when you have two entrepreneurs, it's like having two visionaries in a company.
Yeah.
It can get a little testy. So most people are married or attracted to their opposite, right? And so typically if an entrepreneur is married, they're probably married to an intrapreneur, a builder, a creator, but they're not risk adverse like the entrepreneur. And so one of the biggest mistakes I made in business was thinking Chris was an entrepreneur, and I was exposing him to my problems, to like how many times, and even in our cleaning businesses, like you get a bad review and you're just mortified at the beginning. Like when you first start business, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I got a 1-star review. But as you grow as an entrepreneur, you learn it. It's a lesson. You're talking to lawyers, attorneys, tax season, complaints. You ruin somebody's hardwood floors. Like I just keep going on. I don't lose sleep overnight.
Yeah.
Because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm more risk adverse. Where Chris, on the other hand, what does it do to you?
Yeah. And this is, for me, it carries with me. And this is true with everybody is, there's a time to recovery is the way I say it. And I talk with a lot of people about this, is different people have different types of recovery time from an event. And a lot of entrepreneurs typically have a short recovery time, meaning that you get into a difficult conversation, you get a client reaching out to you, you can deal with the situation, and then you bounce back like a minute later. It's phenomenal. It's incredible to watch happen, because then you have these extreme entrepreneurs or these extreme introverts who you get into that moment, you get into that difficult conversation with a client or whatever, and it lingers for an hour, for 2 hours, for the rest of the day. And to bounce back, to recover, to actually like the time to recovery was so long that I ended up becoming extremely inefficient.
Exhausting.
Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of self-doubt creep in. I was way less efficient the rest of the day because of that one singular moment. And so for me, that was huge in protecting that friction on what dragged me down, because I can't bounce back the same way.
Yeah. So that was probably my biggest mistake, bringing my spouse into the business, was thinking he was an entrepreneur like me. And there can only be one CEO. There can only be one visionary. There can only be one. Isn't that like Obi-Wan Kenobi? Wait, no.
There can only be one.
There can only be one. I don't know. I just know I've heard the meme.
Yeah.
There can only be one. So if you have intentions of bringing in a spouse, bringing in a family member, there can only be one. I learned this from Paul Fassauer. We were partners in Woot Recruit before Chris was even involved. It was funny because at lunch, the person we were having lunch with was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know you like you built that with Paul, and Paul and me worked really well together because we were both visionaries, but we hadn't done enough self-work that we could step down. And every quarter we decided what type of visionary the business needed this quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, like, if we need more marketing initiative, I would remove from my marketing seat and I would step up as CEO and he would come down and go sit in his finance seat. We still covered those seats when we weren't and when we were the CEO. But when the CEO is like very marketing heavy, that's the direction the company goes, right? If it's very finance heavy or forecast heavy, that's the direction the company goes. And I learned that with Paul. There can only be one.
Yeah.
And so when you see companies that have two owners and two CEOs or a husband and wife, you're thinking to yourself, oh God, this is not going to end well. Because there can only be one. And you have to have enough, your ego can't get in the way. And you have to be able to step down and shut your mouth. Go sit in your seat over marketing or finance or ops.
I was going to say, the other person has to be willing to step back and take that back seat.
Yeah, and me and Paul did it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. And then when I brought Chris in, I was trying to do that with him. But Chris wasn't risk adverse. He was, like I said, an entrepreneur, a builder. And so that was probably my biggest mistake.
Yeah. And so there was something in our relationship that was so devastating that it could have destroyed our relationship completely if we would have kept running like that. And it was the idea that, let's just say that somebody does self-work, and Libby was doing self-work and looking to really 10x yourself and to just go at this incredible speed as an entrepreneur, an extreme entrepreneur. And there was this conversation on the worry that I wouldn't be able to keep up.
Yeah, I had that fear. Has anybody here had that fear that you're doing so much self-work? How does your spouse keep up? Like, that's a valid fear and question.
So we had a lot of conversations about this, and but there was a constant fear, and that's where I created a fake vision for myself, not realizing it, that I'm going to go ahead and own my own company. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, just because I was trying to match the level of 10x that I felt that Libby was trying to do as well. And that was just her natural pace, her natural momentum of where she was going to go, because she had that locked in vision. But for me, I was making one up. So it wasn't my vision. It wasn't my goal. But I was going to self-destruct along the way because it just wasn't me. So the fear was me not having something to run at the same pace. And I could see myself, because I'm a very visual person, I could see myself sitting in this place, this corner. Let's just use the example, like I'm sitting there playing video games while Libby's jet setting over to speak to a crowd of 10,000 people about whatever. I didn't think that the marriage would ever last. Like I didn't see myself being an entrepreneur. And so I thought, there's no way that I can keep this relationship going. There's no way that I can keep this marriage alive. And so for me, it was this like traumatic feeling of I have nowhere to go. Until we had many, many conversations about how I actually fit into this and what expectations are we setting for ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that if you can't fire your spouse, then you can't bring in your spouse. I had to be willing to fire him from the positions that didn't fit him. Or if he wasn't willing to sit in them for an X amount of time, then he can't have them. We can't invent positions for our spouses. We can't invent salaries and pay. And that's just like the truth of it. And so, it's one of those things where it wasn't easy, but I feel like for me, one of the biggest things was I learned to shut up. I learned to shut my mouth and just ask really great questions with no answer in return. I would ask Chris all the time questions. I say, Hey, I don't need a response. Like, hey, I just maybe think about this, ponder over this. Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think you're feeling this way? I learned to actually coach in a really non-biased, more non-subjective way and shut my mouth and give him space.
Because I needed space in order to open up. And what I had to do, you found that you had to shut up and listen. I learned that I had to open up. But because I was such an introvert before, And I think I changed over time, but I was such an introvert before that for me, in order for me to open up, and especially being that male stigma of not ever sharing my emotions, because sharing your emotions as a man originally was a sign of weakness. It was a sign that you weren't a quote unquote man in the public's eye, which is completely false. But what I had to do is I had to learn to open up, but I couldn't do that yet because I couldn't stomach the idea of saying something that just I felt depleted my ego. But by her just in the whole shut up and listen, she gave space for me to stomach that thing, that whatever I wanted to do. So I had these little isms. Whenever we would go for on our date mornings, we walk, and sometimes it would just be dead silence. I would have these little isms of like me either breathing or kind of like this little quirks of like scratching my neck or whatever it might be. Libby didn't talk at all during that time. She would just stop, or she would ask the question and she would just stop talking for at least 2 or 3 minutes. And she would see me muster up this sigh, this this, and then another 20 seconds of silence. But eventually I would just spit out one word. And then again, I would spit out 3 more words. And this was me trying to figure out how to get through actually like opening up about something. And at first it was really ugly. I'll be honest with you. I was horrible at opening up and sharing things. But given the space, I finally learned how to like on command, be able to open up and share something and voice it and be able to spitball and have those like heated discussions.
Yeah. Now when Chris gets upset, me and Austin are so like, whoa, watch out. Chris is mad.
Yeah.
Or Chris is emotional. He's talking loud because he doesn't talk loud. Like I've never heard the guy raise his voice ever. But it's, but we see it now and we tease him, but we not all the time. It's just in good fun, especially only when he does it to the kids, not in the business.
But if you have if you have a spouse or somebody who they're not used to sharing, opening up or whatever, is I think the best advice that I could see is giving them the space, asking the right question and giving them the space and just shutting up and listening.
Yeah.
Because that helped change me. I'll be honest, if that didn't happen, I would still be shut off, closed off, doing my own, my habits that I just kept me closed off to the world.
And so here's the weird dynamic, right? If you're a woman business owner, and you want to bring your spouse in, you're bringing in your husband or your wife. But if you're the female business owner, breadwinner, or primarily, or eventually going to be the breadwinner, it does something to your relationship. It isn't easy for men to come in and know that, because the way they're programmed, it's the way they're raised, it's the things they're taught, that they're supposed to be a man. And Chris, for the longest time, tried to be the man.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I had pride in saying, I don't need a man. I was a single mom. I don't need you to help me pay for the kids.
And so I'm over here.
That isn't pride either. That's
right.
Like a social stigma that was supposed to be a sign of pride, that I don't need no man, which is the opposite. I actually do need, I want one. I don't need one. I want one.
Yeah.
But I had my issues as well. And it can be an interesting dynamic to bring in a spouse, because it's almost like a power shift. And if you don't understand the power, or the power's abused, mm-hmm. or you're not a great leader, like if I was a horrible leader, me and Chris would be divorced by
now.
Yeah. But I had said to myself, it didn't work last time, and I'm not willing to lose my relationship over the business.
Yeah.
And so I have to figure out how to do this. I have to figure out how to do this right. Because we were put in a situation where we didn't necessarily have a choice. COVID, he lost his job, mm-hmm. his career for 2 years during COVID. And so my cleaning company and organizing company that was a hobby kind of was my money that I paid for the kids because I didn't need a man to help me pay for my kids, now became the primary source of our income. And
it really, the roles reversed. And also with that, I was gone, again, think of it this way, like I was gone for 80% of the year. And so what we did on our own times, and I think of this the same way as a as a career where you have two people in the household who have different careers. 80% of the time, they're gone and doing something else because they're working on it, they're building it, they're whatever. So you have somebody who is, let's just say, working for corporate. And then you have somebody here who is a entrepreneur who's building a business. 80% of the time, you're working on separate things. And I learned that 80% of the year I was gone doing audio, doing my own thing. And then we'd come back, and then COVID forced us together. And all of a sudden we had to find out how to make that 80% like fit like a glove, but it didn't happen for at least 2-3 years. And so it was really, really hard. And I think that the same is true for really everybody, because when you're working in different fields, different industries, like areas, coming into the business together, all of a sudden you have to make sure that you figure out how to make that 80% fit seamlessly.
Yeah, and then you have to figure out how to spend all day with someone who wasn't here 80% of the year. I mean, I was funny, we were talking about this. I mean, there were points in our relationship, guys, when we were working together, where the sound of Chris's voice irritated me.
Now it's like swooning her, and now she's like,
but no, there were times where I just wanted to like, I couldn't stand the sound of his voice. I'm like, I have to go to another room, because that wasn't the good times, right? It's not always good times. I remember that. We were telling the story when I was like, I couldn't even stand his sound of him breathing.
Yeah.
And that's because we were both not in the greatest state. And, looking back and knowing now. And so, for me, here's some tips, or my side is like, if you can't have these difficult conversations, don't bring in a family member. Like, just don't do it. But if you can have those difficult conversations, if you can fire them from a position and your relationship not suffer, great. Because here's the thing, and they have to be at the same place. Like, I can't be ready and them not be ready and it work out. No, we both have to be ready. I work with my mom. My mom runs one of our companies. I worked with my sister. My oldest son does our social media marketing for Organize It. So I've always worked with family, but I'm very transparent. And sometimes that doesn't work for certain people. And that's brought up front. But here's the thing that is the other side of it. At first, it's going to be hard. At first, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have a lot of difficult conversations on both sides. You're going to have to find each other's flame. Like, what are you guys amazing at? Like, what Chris is amazing at is not what I'm amazing at.
And what is your friction?
And what's my friction? Yeah. Like, and here's the thing though. Building something together is one of the most amazing feelings in the world. Amazing. And to have our children watch us build it together in a healthy relationship, it's priceless. At this point, I don't even care what happens, because I've achieved the ultimate goal of showing my children what a healthy relationship looks like, how to build a business with my spouse that is absolutely amazing. But the real key here is figuring out that fire and that frame, right? Because then you can move so fast. I could not do any of the things that I'm doing right now without him. There's no way. Like, you see me on the outside and the front, and I'm the idea person, and I'm like, hey, I want this. And Chris is the entrepreneur. He's the inside builder. I'm just the face on the outside, coming up with the ideas.
And you see the same energy with people like Alex,
and Layla.
And Layla.
Yeah. Or like Cody Sanchez and her husband.
Yeah.
I have the ideas. I have the vision. I'm like, I want to build the most powerful AI for the small business owner, for the home service, right? That's ever existed. Not just some AI agent bot that's a white label of something else. No, this is made for our teams. This is made to leverage profit. This is made for the small business owner to move faster. And without a hesitation, I said, this is what I want. This is what I want it to look like. Chris and Alfredo and Miguel and Marilyn and Rexy, they go into build mode, like
execution.
And I could never achieve the things that I'm achieving at the speed I'm achieving without Chris's help. That's how you see business owners move fast. Now, to me, when we have separate careers, it made my business move slower. It did. Because they could support me in a certain way, but their contribution is going to another business, not to our business.
Yeah.
And so the building is slower, and you can feel the stagnation or the slowness, because there's a really good book. It's called The CEO. I'm going to go get it.
Okay.
About the CEO, and it's a software book.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about one CEO or one builder.
And they can still hear you, by the way.
I know they can, but there's this great book. Granted, I don't read books anymore. Oh my God, I can't find it.
I'm letting her talk.
It's called anyways, do you want to share something, Chris?
Yeah. So I wanted to share the story of the oxen, and then maybe you can help me out here. But there's a story
from Leonard, actually.
Yeah. But the story of the oxen on, if you have one ox who's pulling the cart, it's able to pull a certain amount of weight. But at the same time, if you were to add a second ox and there's two pulling the cart, it's not a doubling of power that you're able to pull. It's actually, I think it's 14 times if I'm not mistaken. I have to check on that. But it's exponential with having two people or two oxen pulling the cart. You can actually get way further, exponentially further, having that leverage with the right team, the right person, completely in sync with you in your life. And so I think that's what we've really played into, same as with Alex and Layla, is when you really narrow down the fire in where you guys sit. And most importantly, I think is where we do not need to be sitting with the friction. I think that's the most important part, is where we shouldn't be sitting, and making sure that we're super, super clear on where we should be running at. That's when things can get exponential, when you're talking about a business with a spouse.
Yeah, I found the book, and it's called The Great CEO Within. And it talks about businesses who only have one owner. Now, one owner versus one CEO are completely different, right? You can have multiple owners, you can have multiple investors, and that the companies with one owner, one contributing member, are more likely to fail than those with multiple owners, which I find extremely interesting, because I felt it with Paul. When we had two owners, it was incredible, the speed at which we moved. And then when Paul left, and I hadn't brought Chris in yet, honestly, I felt the stagnation. I felt the slowness. And you didn't have that other person that was there willing to work 80 hours a week when you needed to for no more pay, to just launch something, change something, build something, implement something. And that's what happens when you have multiple owners. So it's called, it's kind of hard to read the title. It's The Great CEO Within. Again, I think this was either Jim recommended this book, or SaaS Academy. Again, another SaaS Academy book.
Because Jim was our fractional COO.
Yeah.
For a while.
And, it's crazy to see in here, they talk about the amount of businesses that fail that have one owner, which I find interesting. But I felt it when because I've had multiple partners that weren't my spouse. Paul was one. Joel was another. And I felt the speed, and then I felt the stagnation when I was alone. And it's not an easy thing. And so I think it's really interesting. So solo founders have high rates of burnout. The emotional burnout is just too high. As with any trend, there are exceptions, but the general rule holds, versus having multiple founders.
Yeah.
And now you see that speed. You see the speed that me and Chris have. And it's not just me. Like, I'm the idea. Here's what I want, the visionary, and I have an executor. Now, it is not the EOS visionary implementer. It is not a dumping ground. That is why I've moved away from EOS, and I love some of their structures, but I didn't love the dumping ground. I didn't love like the cascading. I tell Chris and Chris tells everybody else. No, because
here's the thing is the traditional EOS model is visionary integrator, and the integrator works as a filter. And if you think about like water, a filter, a reservoir, whatever it might be, is that you take a bunch of stuff and you filter it down to a little bit of stuff. That's visionary integrator relationship. Now, I was, had the benefit of sitting in a room with Cameron Harold. Totally, really quirky, cool guy. I get along with.
I'm attracted to women.
I asked him a few questions when he had first rolled out. But I had, I think there was something that he had mentioned and talked through, and it was kind of reframing that idea of that visionary integrator role, because there's some things that just don't really click right. And the way that I can explain it is when he said it, it was putting the reins on the dragon. It wasn't controlling it. It wasn't pulling it down. It wasn't restricting, but it's more so on the idea of putting the reins on the dragon means to like fly with it, to actually like still fly at the same pace. It's just making sure that you're avoiding certain obstacles. Or
so do you think you put the reins on me, Chris?
Oh yeah, every night.
Anyways. No, and that's great. And so and going back to working with your spouse versus not working with your spouse, when you can, and so like the whole single founder. So what did I call you the other day, Chris? You were a late founder? A what?
A technical founder? A late founder.
A late founder.
Yeah.
Chris did not help me start any of the businesses except for One Layer Deep or One LD. But I had organized it before. I had Woo Recruit before. I bought Sell Convert Clean from somebody else. I bought the code and we recreated it. And so I call him a late founder, where he can think like a founder, not a visionary, right? Not an owner, and come in and help with that. But when you have two people and their vested interest is one helps their family, helps themselves, helps an industry, or helps, people that they care about, the power at which you can move, the speed at which you can move is incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. When the other day, well, it was last night, we were at dinner and going back to that conversation with 4 young adults sitting at the table. Well, 5 if you count Austin. Then there's Yaya. And then there was me and Chris. So 5 people in their 20s. And me and Chris told them that we were so excited to go to sleep at night because we wanted to wake up so we could go back to work. Like that's the era we live in right now. We're like so excited so that we could go to sleep so that we can go back to work.
Yeah.
But all of the kids said, wow, I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we said that there's actually there's a great book that talks about this. And it's One Layer Deep. It was the future frame. It's what we're talking about right now. But I had to say, it was really, really refreshing to have a conversation and talk so like openly with a lot of young kids about this and be able to share these ideas and for them to actually latch onto it and actually do something with it.
Or ask more questions.
So don't ever think that one is, because Austin's just passed by, don't ever think that because I think for our kids, just because they're quiet doesn't mean that they're not listening. They're absorbing what you say in their own time, at their own pace. And what you said 2 years ago probably won't hit them until 2 years later. And then they're going to remember it and say, you know what, that was actually good advice. I'm going to go ahead and run with it.
That goes true though for your spouses, guys. Like we had this conversation earlier, we're worried about, we keep up leveling ourselves. What about our spouses? They hear what you say. They're absorbing what you say, right? It might not hit them in that moment, but they'll remember it.
Yeah.
And so Summer said, speed is 101. Go fast enough. You can already work through mistakes, yes, and have them fixed. Instead of going slow, then you deal with the issues for months,
if not years.
OMG, Chris, you have a dirty mind. Uh-huh.
Yes, I do.
But yes, if you're willing to put in the work up front when it comes to bringing in a spouse or family member, you don't have to put the work in later. It's either work now or work later, right? It's that theory. Work on it now and you don't have to work on it later. It's not going to be easy. And so we talked about the friction, the focus, the fire, and then the frame. This was something big that I did for Chris that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I did it because I saw what he was very good at, but that position didn't technically exist yet.
Yeah.
And so the frame was locking it in with execution so that the future pulls from someday to today. We knew where he created value, but that wasn't his fire. And how do I lock it in? How do I frame it so that someday came today.
Yeah.
And I think this stands true for a lot of spouses that we want to bring into our business that are working in a different field or different area. We want them there. It's just that maybe that position doesn't exist yet. Maybe we're not large enough to support that salary. How do we lock it in? How do we pull someday into today?
I know this sounds very, because I don't want this to sound fluffy or flu-flu. It's a very tactical thing that you can work through. And again, the book shares you a lot of the frameworks on how to do it. If you haven't read it, One Layer Deep, you can even just skip to chapter 10 if you need to. Just go straight to chapter 10. Don't read the intro. Don't read nothing.
Hey, if you're doing the certification, you get every chapter for free.
Yeah. But the future frame, we've gone through this exercise with everybody on our team. More than a dozen, what is it, like 18? I can't even keep track anymore. But I've gone through this exercise with everybody on our team to go through the DITLO, the day in the life of, and the time audits, and build their future frame and really narrow in on where should they be, where should they be going. And I've seen people go from nearly getting fired to all of a sudden they're running at, I give Rexy as an example, 8 times the speed at what she was going at before.
So everybody in the book, just so that you know, we didn't use their real names because you're not supposed to do that. So Wendy thinks I wrote the chapter about Wendy. Every single person, we changed the names of the people in the book.
Yeah.
So like Rexy was one of the chapters. We just didn't call her Rexy. I don't remember what we called her.
Right. Roxy
or something. We changed the names. But yeah.
So, but I only say this because we went through and we had to do the hard shit with sitting down together on the couch. I remember it vividly because I have a vivid imagination. We went through the self-sabotage exercises and we spent 2 days dealing with this the first time. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it, I think I ended up crying a lot through these first 2 days of the self-sabotage exercise because this is the first time I've ever done something like that. And what came from it was a lot of tearing out, stripping out, remove this idea. I kept telling myself something. And this is where we really captured some of the first taste of One Layer Deep as it is now. As you guys see it and experience it now, is what do you really want? In a very, very deep sense.
Not what you think I want, not what you think I want to hear, not what you think the world wants you to know. Like,
cut the bullshit.
What do you really want?
What do you really want? And we kept hammering back and forth. Let's cut the BS. What do you really want? No, cut the BS. What do you really want?
Yeah.
And this went on for 2 days, back and forth. And we started to get so it was scary how real we were getting with ourselves.
Because here's the thing, Chris told me he wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was already an entrepreneur. I already had Organize It. I already had Woot Recruit. I was partnering I hadn't partnered with Joel yet. And I'd already had businesses in the past. My cleaning and organizing business is not the first business I ever had. I had a very successful bar and restaurant in Ybor City. If you've ever been to Tampa, you know what Ybor City is. Grossing thousands of dollars a night, high volume. And when Chris told me he wanted to be an entrepreneur, this is the weird part. I knew he didn't have it in him at where he was at in his life. Mm-hmm. But was it my place to tell him that I didn't believe in that? Did I tell you that I think I told you I was concerned about it because of the risk factors.
We're like, I'm not sure we got it yet.
And because he was telling me something that he thought he needed to say versus did he really want to be an entrepreneur? There wasn't for me to decide. And
so here's the key is that I don't think you ever said no. All you ever did was reframe the question again. Is that what you really want?
You sure?
And so again, it was a volley back and forth. And I remember this vividly because it was 2 days of self-sabotage exercise. It was this sitting on the couch, we had to go and take a couple breaks and come sit back down. It was exhausting. But what came out of it was something that was so clear, so absolute that there was no assumption. There was no guessing anymore. It was purely this is how I run and how I run fast.
Yeah. And so one of the things I can suggest too is to start meeting with your spouse. Start meeting with your partner or spouse to what do they want? What's the future look like? what do you want from the company? What do you need? Do you need to retire from the company? Do you need the company to run so that you can retire? Well, I can tell you right now, you need documentation and a system. Come see me. But do you want to sell the company? A company's worthless if it's not documented. Worthless, because if it's not documented, it needs the owner. That's a whole nother topic. But start having these conversations with your spouse before you bring them in. You need to have a fundamental understanding of what you want from life.
Yeah.
Business and your home life are all the same freaking thing. There is no such thing as time management. There's only such thing as energy management. I can only manage my energy. I cannot manage time. And then we wonder why we have no time for anything, because we're trying to manage something that time doesn't exist.
And here's the thing too, that came out of that as well, is the here and now is a temporary state. What we're working on today probably isn't going to exist in the same way that it's going to exist a year from now or 2 years from now. And so I got stuck building a future based off of the here and now, based off of what I thought other people should think of me, which was one of my self-sabotages, until I had to completely destroy that idea of the here and now of today. And 2 days later with that self-sabotage exercise is figure out what it is that I really want without all that BS.
Yep. Where do you think that most of your issues, which I know where they came from, but for like the listeners, what was the thing that you needed to get over? You have to go in depth. I said you don't have to go in depth, but what was the thing that was holding you back from your marriage, from even a business, being an employee, a great dad? Like, what was holding you back?
I really think that it's down to the social stigma. It's where I set my expectations that others should see on me. So again, it's my self-sabotage, but I think that this is true for a lot of people, is someone else's perception of where I should be or what success looks like to other people. And so my definition of success was very superficial originally, because my future meant that if you were to post this on social media, if you were to post this and share this with people, I'm an entrepreneur, I own my own company, I have 6 jets, I got this and that. It's not really what I love, but it's the only thing that I had that was a staple of what success felt like because of what I saw.
I was just, for the listeners, like, how did you work through that?
So it was working through one layer deep. It was, what do I really want? Cutting the BS and just being happy with it. I think is the most important thing, is being okay with myself and what I was really passionate about, and being 100% unapologetically happy with that idea.
Yeah. And so, going back to bringing in a spouse, or even just working with a family member, it's an amazing thing. Like, I love working with my mom. I love working with Chris. And I've had the other side of where it was absolutely horrible, like ruining life, relationships, business. And so I've seen both sides. And then I've been by myself in business. And then I've seen how slow it can move when I'm the only one that cares so much. I'm the only one that puts like the passion and energy and love into it. And that's slow and honestly frustrating, because you see other people moving so fast and you're like, oh my God, why can I go as fast as them? And I will say that I am not lucky whatsoever that I have Chris. It isn't luck. It is 100% nothing but work and effort to make this work. 100% effort and work. So, we'll wrap up now. We've been on for a little while, and I love this topic about working with family, working with your spouse. It can be an incredible feeling. Me and Chris, I went from, guys, if I can do this, you can do this. I went from, and so I do not believe that all those assessments out there define you. I am a huge kind of like, I love the assessments to help you understand people, but I hate that they put you in a box.
Yeah.
And so I do not believe that they say like Colby and DISC doesn't change over time, or Culture Index or Myers-Briggs. I have changed. I am a different person, 100%.
Yeah.
And every time I take those tests, they come out inconclusive. That should tell you how crazy I am. But Chris's has changed. Chris took Colby and it totally put him in a box, which affected his performance and his outcome in his career.
Because I now have the definition of who I am, and who I am is who I am.
And that's
nothing will change it.
We change. Whoever says we don't is full of crap. We do change over time if you're willing to change, if you're willing to. But let's go back to the working with a spouse. It can be absolutely amazing and you can run fast. And it isn't luck. It is totally like, it was hard. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. 100%. It wasn't hard. I mean, it was super hard. We've had counseling. We went through mediators.
Yep.
We've had nights where we went to bed and didn't talk to each other, but it's been years since then. It's been years. And so, but when you can make it work and you're both willing to put in the work, the outcome, the other side.
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's amazing to build something with someone. That feeling is unlike any other feeling that you've ever had. It's better than building it with just a regular random partner or business partner. When you can build it with your spouse, I don't think there's anything in the world that can describe that feeling because you're doing it for your family. Like I do it for my parents. I said, I'm not building a legacy. F a legacy. I'm building a freaking dynasty because this thing is going to live beyond me.
Yeah.
Right? It's a dynasty. When I told Chris, screw the empire, screw the legacy, I'm building a dynasty. And I told him what a dynasty was. He was like, oh my God.
I'm in.
He's in. He's like, I'm in. Because a dynasty is documented. Dynasty is a system that lives on beyond you and can keep operating without you. The legacy is how you're remembered, right? An empire is what you built. A dynasty continues on without you. And he was so excited when I explained it. I said, we're throwing all those other things out the window.
Yeah.
It's a dynasty is what we're after. And when you can build a dynasty with your partner, it's the most amazing thing in the world. I just like the emphasis. What did she say? Emphasis put on most assessments. I do too. It has been a great morning and we love the topic of working with family, spouse. Like, how do you get there? I don't think it's talked about very much. It's a great topic to kind of dive deeper in. And I would not be where I'm at all. I wouldn't even be able to write a book.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because Chris wrote the book. It was because of the support to like, hey, I'm in this mode. Can you help me with the kids? Can you cook dinner in 2025? And it helps you along the way. And there's a common understanding and common alignment into what he wants to do. So like now I had the idea for the AI, right? And the community and everything. And like, how do we bring team members in and how do we make this? We remove that linear company and we create, like tech-enabled and AI-enabled companies. And it's funny because now Chris and Alfredo are like, they are AI like, in it. And I'm over here and I'm like, I don't even know what they're doing at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they're just making updates so fast I can't keep up with them. It's been an amazing thing to watch. Not just the company growth, but your spouse's growth. Chris is over here having a conversation with one of our developers and I'm not in it. I don't go to all the meetings. I am not the owner that needs to know everything. But I'm hearing him and I was like, so this is when you know, like, you're kind of happy with what's happening in your life. I thought to myself, I was like, damn, Chris is smart. I'm like, I didn't know he knew all that information and he didn't know it. It's just that he was put in a position where he was so passionate about what he was learning about. He became an expert. He lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes this AI with Leia. Well, I don't know if he sleeps with Leia yet. I heard him talking and I was taken back. Because I was like, oh my God, like he's incredibly up-leveled himself just in that time. And for us to give him that space to do that, to really live in his passion was for me, just like it's like almost like when you do something for your children, you do it for your spouse. It's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm so excited. Anyways, this was a great morning topic. If you have questions about working with your spouse, I have other rules about how we work together as far as like communication and chats and certain things, workspace. We have rules, right? Sometimes they get wishy-washy, but we try to hold them pretty tight. Just comment in the chat and ask us like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do I hold them accountable? I can tell you that too.
Yeah.
How do I hold my mother accountable? My mother could tell you that. She's probably watching. But we're happy to answer those questions if like how we do it in our software and in our other businesses. And we've been able to make it work and we have great relationships and I have amazingly invested people in our businesses. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. Yes. Bye.